Zora Neale Hurston, claiming a space on American Experience.
I also found it very interesting that when she wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, that her peers, Alan Locke and Langston Hughes, came out against her and said some horrible things about that book when it was published, as well as some other authors and critics as well. And I just find it very interesting and wanted to get your thoughts about it. Why do you think that in our society in particular, we're in some instances, we're very quick to tear each other down as opposed to building each other up? Like they were in a place in history where there's a way you say things. They could have expressed their opinion without being so overtly negative, but they chose to be overtly negative, which ultimately affected that piece at the time. But then it went on to become, one of her most lauded pieces. It became a motion picture starring Halle Berry at some point. I just wanted to get your thoughts about how you feel about us as a culture doing that to each other.
Richard Wright was completely disrespectful of Zora Neale Hurston's work, Their Eyes Were Watching God. He basically said it had no thought. She wrote a book and that it had no thought, no message.
Yeah, I was particularly offended by the fact that he said it contained minstrel techniques that make white people laugh. I was like, "Ooh, that's really harsh."
Yeah, he was very harsh. I think the critique also speaks of sexism. The story centering a Black woman, and it's a story that centers her thinking and her thoughts. Richard Wright has never been a Black woman, so how, in many ways,
that part.
why should Richard Wright or Elaine Locke be like given their 50 cents on this particular book at that time? But we understand why they were, why they were asked to do it or why they elected to do it. I think that their personal feelings about Zora Neale Hurston interfered with that as well. But as we talk about in the documentary, it is a political book. It's a book that it provides a gender analysis, a racial analysis. It's not overt. Richard Wright was more about hitting it on the head, right? So he had a different style, different approach. And the approach that was going to, that was coming into fashion was going to suit him and his writings more than what the kind of writing that she was doing was, as they say, no longer in vogue. In general, Black people were becoming less in vogue overall. But Wright's work and some other people's work is more hit it on the head, political, and we need that, and we need space for things that are the critique is more subtle. I feel in general like the pie in many places should be expanded, and I say that with documentaries as well. There should be space for all types of documentaries, expository mode, poetic, the range, observational. Let's not say one kind of way of presenting story and information is more important than other, because the world is made up of all different the world is made up of audience members who have all different ways of wanting to engage with information.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to bring that up because I was like, ooh, that was harsh. I was flabbergasted when you put that into the doc. I was like, oh my God. Like,
right. I wanted to really reinforce it because I didn't just put it, we just don't see the page.
It wasn't for shock value. It was to make a point. I got it.
But it was a little bit. I wanted people to feel a little shocked. I mean, and that's why it was like lifted off the page, like no thought. I mean, that is just.
It was disrespectful. It was very disrespectful. But let me tell you some things.
But a lot of people, can I just say one other thing?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like Zora Neale Hurston was disrespected at a lot of points in her life. And she was someone who remember those things, but also learn to move forward without getting stuck. She didn't go, woe is me, and crawl up in a ball. Oh, they wrote these things. She was like, she recall she wanted to have her toenails debate Elaine Locke about what he knew about literature. She was very angry, and she moved on, right? She continued to she wrote her autobiography. I mean, we're starting to get to the point in the story when this happens is things are not going to go as well for her as they had been. But again, she didn't roll up in a ball and stop writing. She didn't let them stop her from trying to raise money to collect folklore.
No, absolutely not. She sounded like she was a tough cookie, and that no was not in her vocabulary, so to speak, which I really admired that. I also admired the fact that you put the "Oh Howard, We Love Thee" song. Like, I've heard that song in the background because that's the song that when you change classes at Howard University, that song is playing in chimes as you're walking across the campus, going from class to class on the hour. It's only on the hour.
Oh, wow.
But and
Oh,
I was
right.
like,
Actually, I was doing research there. Now I remember that. Yeah.
and I was like, that song sounds familiar. I'm like, oh, that's the song that they would play as we were going across campus. I was cracking up. And they would always play it at that time, and they would always play it, during Founders Day and any special days like that where they would have assemblies and whatnot in the auditorium. But I was like, you better honor Howard University. Thank you, Tracy Heather Strain. That was the bomb. I love that. And
I'm so glad. My parents met at Howard, so my sister and I actually did the research at Howard that is in the film, which included her document where she signed with Charlotte Osgood Mason, and we grew up hearing about stories about Howard. My parents were there in the 50s, like I
oh,
said, after you.
wow. They must have some real
And
fun stories.
yeah, and so yeah, stories about how they would pretend they were African to get into movie theaters and not have to sit up in the balcony, and just a range of things.
Oh, that's
And I actually did
hilarious.
research. Lorraine Hansberry's older sister, or her only sister, went there as well. So I enjoyed researching and looking at all these faces and figures. And so Zora Neale Hurston, the most important part of this is not so much that my parents went there, but Zora Neale Hurston herself was so excited to have been accepted to Howard. She didn't think she was worthy of the place. And so she really wanted to do good there. And she did, right?
The last thing I want to talk to you about is Zora has this quote where she says, "Go hard or go home." How do you make that applicable to you, Miss Tracy Heather Strain?
Filmmaking's hard. And to get this one was complicated, and there's so many things that could have been in here, and to try to figure it out. And sometimes you you know you want to be able to convey how sincere and earnest you are and how much care you're going to take with things. And sometimes you encounter people that make it challenging for you to get to access their material. It's a hard process, right? And because something like this, you have to go to so many different sources, a lot of private sources and things. And you have to, now that we work in high definition, you have to get files big so they look good on the screen. And there's a lot going on. And so we had to dig in. And so go hard or go home was our motto for this year. I have to say, this year, 2023, I'm having a new motto, and it's more about resting.
Just to close it out, what is the one thing that you want people to take away about Zora Neale Hurston when they watch this documentary?
It's important to recognize our American heroes. And she's an American hero. She's an American figure. Yes, she represents the African American community, but I want people to start recognizing a broad range of people as important to the American story.
That was very well said. She is absolutely an American hero in American literature. literature. Absolutely. Tracy Heather Strain, thank you so much for giving me a slice of your time today. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We always have such full, well-rounded, insightful discussions, and this one was no different. Thank you so much.